It has been close to a year now since the release of the Steam Deck, so it's time for some thoughts on how it's doing. Now, I've had access since before the official release, as I was one of the lucky people Valve sent a review unit out to. So I've seen firsthand, probably more than a lot of people, how many of the rough edges have been smoothened out over the last year. And I have to say, I've only continued to be more and more impressed with how Valve has actually handled their latest hardware entry. I've actually had 3 different Steam Decks now, the first one being the original review unit that I had to send back to Valve because it had a bad fan, which was quite lucky because I also snapped the SD card inside of it when I took the back off to have a look at the fan. So I've had the replacement for that, and then I also bought one personally myself because I'm just so happy with it and invested in it personally. Now, the Steam Deck is by no means perfect. It has many issues still remaining, but then that really is true of any hardware ever made by anyone. I could write a long list of problems I have with my iPhone, with my previous Android phone. I could write a very long list about the Switch, and basically every other device I own has problems. And while the Steam Deck does have issues, it still remains as my favourite way to play games because of the convenience as well as the surprising power it has in what you can actually play and do with it. Now, none of this would be possible without Valve's support, and it has helped pull over many skeptics to it as well. I remember reading The Verge, and their original review headline was simply that it's not ready, and yet a year later, that same writer has now said it's clearly ready, it's won them over, and it was their favourite gadget of the last year. Again, that wouldn't be possible without such fierce support from Valve. And they've put out over 100 updates looking back at all the release notes. That's not even counting updates to Proton, their compatibility layer to run Windows games on Steam Deck that's also used on Linux desktop as well. Proton itself has had tons of updates over the last year as Valve keep chasing down issues in games and getting them fixed with various open source developers under contract to work on things like Proton, the graphics drivers and everything else. When you compare the compatibility on Steam Deck between now and when it launched, it's like a night and day difference. The improvements are simply astonishing. What I always appreciate is that when Valve do an update on something, it's not the usual notes that you might see from other hardware vendors and their typical patch notes stating things like a one-liner of improved stability. Valve always like to tell you exactly what they've done, and they've repeatedly improved the interface on the Steam Deck as well, like how they added proper multitasking in the gaming mode and ensured only recently that switching between apps and closing them all worked nicely, even for things that you haven't installed through Steam. With the Deck Verified system, Valve has seen plenty of things to be happy about there, as do players. Deck Verified being their official compatibility rating that they split between verified, playable for titles that have some issues, and unsupported, with over 7,300 titles rated at least playable. You can continue to try and play anything, of course. That's only what Valve has officially tested. Some of the biggest and most played games around can be played on Steam Deck, like Elden Ring, Spider-Man Remastered, God of War, Cyberpunk 2077, No Man's Sky, Apex Legends, Valheim, and the list just keeps going on. Now, Deck Verified is far from perfect though. You can't really go anywhere without someone complaining about a rating on some game not being right. From verified games that don't actually work to unsupported games that surprisingly work perfectly. It's an ongoing area of improvement that I hope the second year Valve really nails down. Although, really, the ratings are largely correct when you actually look at the bigger picture. It's just a few random titles that slip through the net. The Steam Deck has sat in the top 5 of the top sellers list for something around 40 weeks now, and the majority of that time has been at either number 1 or 2. It only seems to drop down to number 2 when a few super hits come along to knock it down, like Elden Ring. And while the Steam Deck is going great overall, it has mountains yet to climb. A sore point continues to be the anti-cheat problem. It's a constant issue with some of the biggest games just not working. Games like Destiny 2, PUBG, Dead by Daylight, Rust, Modern Warfare 2, Lost Ark, FIFA 23, and so on. The thing is, there's not a huge amount that Valve can actually do about this though. They did work with Epic on easy anti-cheat support, and the same for BattlEye. We just need more people using the Steam Deck for developers to care to make sure it's actually supported. And that of course is just an ongoing issue, but one that might eventually solve itself if the Steam Deck continues to be a success. It's repeatedly just a straight up marvel that you can play so many games on a portable like this, or hooked up to a TV or monitor with either the official Valve dock, or one of the great many USB-C docks available elsewhere. Playing previously exclusive games to PlayStation or Xbox running on it just feels amazing. And we've repeatedly seen publishers talk about their excitement about it as well. Even Microsoft have repeatedly made announcements to showcase their published games' compatibility. Microsoft even went as far as to create their own guide for Xbox cloud gaming on Steam Deck. The surprises through the last year just kept on coming. The community around the Steam Deck building up has been pretty amazing to watch as well, seeing people learn how Linux works because the Steam Deck is powered by SteamOS and not Windows. We've seen the heroic games launcher and others like Lutris repeatedly improve to help with getting other stores working on Steam Deck, like GOG, Epic Games, EA, Ubisoft, and all the other launchers. Then there's the Decky Loader plugin system I've covered a few times that can really help add in some essential extras that Valve is yet to add into the system or simply has no plans to. The possibilities with the Steam Deck just feel endless. And we have to remember, this is all because of Valve's support of open standards and the Steam Deck being an open platform. And I think this is what will keep it being so popular, because people are appreciating that there's no walled garden locking them in. And it's not just the software community though, the hardware community is pretty incredible to watch as well. So many people keep coming up with these new and clever ways to attach things to the Steam Deck, with my favourite being the DeckMate attachment system that lets you pretty much slot anything onto the back of the Steam Deck. And while we've had a few gaffes like Dbrand with their problematic magnets, it's all still fun to see companies try doing things with it. Faced with an ever-increasing amount of competition now from GPD, ANEO, 1xPlayer and more, who are putting out more and more devices with newer chips in them, but often with higher prices, it will be fun to see how it all continues building up for Valve and the Steam Deck. Valve basically opened the floodgates for handheld PC gaming, and we still haven't even seen the public release of SteamOS 3. And once that's out, we'll hopefully see more vendors use it on their devices, and then potentially people making their own Steam machines with it. So that's it for now, just some completely random thoughts I wanted to just throw out there now that it's nearly been a year. For those of you who have had it a while, and even those of you who are new, be sure to leave a comment about your overall experience and how you feel about it. But that's it for this video for now, I'll see you later.